Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive? This time, we're exploring the wisdom of Saadi of Shiraz, specifically the opening of his Gulistan. That's Rose Garden if you haven't met Saadi yet.
The Gulistan. It really does feel like revisiting those cherished childhood lessons, full of nostalgia and timeless wisdom.
You got it. And to guide us, we've got 50 conversations between two brilliant Iranian philosophers, Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani. Just a quick heads up, this is all translated, so apologies if a few nuances got lost in the process.
It's like we've got 50 keys to unlock Saadi's secrets.
I like that. 50 keys. Hey, think of this as key number 10 in our Wisdom Unveiled series. All right, let's jump right into Saadi's opening lines. He doesn't waste any time. Give thanks to God Almighty, whose obedience is the cause of nearness and whose gratitude increases his bounty. Wow. Powerful stuff right from the start. What jumps out at you?
It's incredible how Saadi, right off the bat, establishes that connection with God. But It's not about entitlement at all. It's about gratitude, and indebtedness.
Yeah, I see that. And then he hits us with obedience. Dr. Dinani really dives into this concept, this word ta'at, in the original Persian. It's not just about blind submission, though, is it? There's more to it.
Way more. Dr. Dinani nails it. It's about recognizing God's greatness, and aligning yourself with that higher purpose. He sees it as true worship, a conscious choice, not just going through the motions.
So it's about understanding our place in this vast universe. And from that understanding blooms genuine gratitude, what Saadi calls Shukr. But Dr. Dinani makes this interesting point. It's not just a feeling, right?
Right. It's much deeper than just a fleeting feeling. He calls it a deliberate act of the intellect. We're choosing to acknowledge the good, to be thankful, even when things are rough. He even tells the story about a Sufi master who gave thanks even when things were falling apart.
Whoa, that's next-level gratitude. Makes you think, doesn't it, listener?
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about giving thanks when things are going wrong? But then Saadi does this brilliant thing. He takes these big, heavy ideas and grounds them in something so relatable. He says, every breath we take is life-sustaining, and when it goes forth, it gladdens the spirit. He turns breathing into a philosophy lesson.
Classic Saadi. He loves to highlight the dual nature of blessings. See, every breath, it's both receiving that life-giving air and releasing what we don't need anymore. Inhaling and exhaling, they become metaphors for appreciating everything we receive and everything we let go of.
I'm with you. And suddenly, Saadi's turned breathing into a gratitude practice. It's as if he's saying, hey, wake up. Pay attention to the miracles happening right in front of you.
It's a call to be present, especially in our world so full of distractions. Breathing becomes this anchor to the present moment, to the incredible fact that we're alive.
Makes you wonder, what other everyday miracles are we missing? Food, shelter, relationships. The list could go on forever.
And that brings us back to language itself. Dr. Dinani argues that language is not just communication, it's a window into the human soul.
Wow, I never thought about it that way. He even suggests that language. Well, that it could have a divine origin, something beyond the material world, It's not like he's laying down dogma, more like planting a seed of an idea.
It's definitely a question worth pondering. Could something as basic as language, something we use every single day, point to something bigger than ourselves? Dr. Dinani makes a good point. Even the simplest building blocks of language, those letters, the sounds, can lead us to some really deep philosophical discussions.
True. But language has this shadow side, too. Remember that cautionary tale Dr. Dinani brings up, the one about the king and the tongue. Words, they have the power to build, but they can also destroy.
And that brings us to a really important question for all of us, I think. How do we use this gift, this power of language, responsibly, knowing that it has the potential to do harm?
I'm glad you brought that up. Dr. Dinani has some thoughts on this. First, be aware. Be aware of the impact your words have on yourself and on others. Think before you speak, and consider those consequences.
And he also stresses speaking from the heart, with sincerity and authenticity. Saadi's words have resonated for centuries because they came from his lived experience. It's not just what you say, it's that intention behind it.
And maybe the most important thing, be a good listener. Dr. Dinani reminds us that real communication is a two-way street. It's about understanding different perspectives, even when you don't agree with them.
Yeah, it's about creating space for dialogue, for empathy, for connection. Maybe that's how we use language to build bridges instead of walls. But there's another layer here. Dr. Larijani brings up this fascinating concept, silence as a form of language. He argues that silence can actually be a choice made by the intellect, a way of communicating.
You know, that saying, silence is golden, maybe there's something to that.
Exactly. He talks about this language of the heart or inner speech, where communication is happening without a single word being spoken.
That's incredible. He even mentions the Sufi mystic Shams Tabriz, who hardly ever spoke. He believed his unspoken words held more power and depth. Makes you think about all the ways we communicate beyond words, right? Our actions, our expressions, even our energy.
Sometimes a single gesture can speak volumes, louder than 1,000 words. And this ties back to Saadi's emphasis on being present, being mindful of every breath, every action, every word.
It's like Saadi's whispering, pay attention, life is speaking to you, even in the silence. This is really making me think.
It really does make you stop and think,
Ah,
how much are we missing when we're not fully present? And speaking of presence, let's loop back to Saadi's opening lines. This whole idea of gratitude, it's not just about thanking God, is it?
you're so right. Dr. Larijani brings in this beautiful hadith. He who does not thank people does not thank God. It's like Saadi's echoing that sentiment, widening that circle of gratitude to include, well, everyone who touches our lives in a positive way.
It's about recognizing that interconnectedness, right? The gratitude we have toward God, it should show up in how we treat each other, especially those who are making a real difference in the world, through their actions or compassion.
Absolutely. And it makes you think about all those people we should be thanking more often. Our parents, teachers, mentors, friends, even those everyday heroes we tend to overlook.
Exactly. Dr. Dinani suggests kind of a shift in our focus. Instead of thanking for things, maybe we should be thanking specific people, recognizing their contributions, and expressing that appreciation sincerely.
Makes you think, doesn't it, listener? Who are your unsung heroes?
Yeah.
Whose actions have you been taking for granted? I know I've got a few people pop into my mind right now, but let's get back to Saadi's genius for a second. His words have resonated for centuries. What's the secret to that enduring appeal?
Well, Dr. Dinani believes Saadi's language, it's more than just communication. It reflects his profound understanding of the human soul. His ability to capture what it means to be alive, the joys, the sorrows, the whole messy human experience.
He had this amazing way of expressing those profound truths, and in a way that speaks to people across cultures and time. It's not just intellectual, it's emotional, it's even spiritual.
Definitely. His words touch our hearts just as much as our minds. Dr. Dinani even poses this question. Could the very existence of language point to a divine source?
That's a big one. It makes you think about how unique human language is, right? Our ability to create meaning, express ourselves. It's something no other species can do.
Right. And Dr. Dinani, he's not stating it as fact, he's just presenting a possibility for us to consider. What if language, something we use every single day, what if it's a gift from something greater? A reflection of our connection to something much bigger than ourselves.
It's a lot to unpack, that's for sure. It's making me see language, even the alphabet, in a whole new light.
Dr. Dinani's point is that even the simplest elements of language, they can spark these profound philosophical discussions. But as we've been discussing, language isn't always used for good. He reminds us of that story, the one about the king and the tongue.
Yeah, that cautionary tale, a reminder that words, they can be weapons. They can hurt, they can divide, just as easily as they can inspire and heal.
It all comes back to that question of responsibility. How do we use this powerful tool of language to build up instead of tearing down?
Dr. Dinani suggests cultivating awareness, for starters. Being aware of the impact our words have, both on ourselves and on those around us. Taking a pause, really thinking before we speak, and considering those consequences.
It's about speaking with intention, with compassion, and with a sense of responsibility. It's not just about getting our own thoughts and feelings out there, but also about thinking how those words might land on someone else.
And going beyond just speaking our minds, it's about speaking from the heart. Saadi's words resonate because they were rooted in his experience, in his genuine understanding of what it means to be human.
Authenticity, that's key. Our words have more weight when they're aligned with our actions, right? When we actually walk the talk, as the saying goes.
I love that. And Dr. Larijani throws in this really intriguing concept, silence as a form of language. He says it's a deliberate choice, made by the intellect, a way of communicating without actually uttering a word.
He calls it the language of the heart, or inner speech, suggesting that sometimes the deepest communication happens in those quiet spaces between the words.
It makes you think about all the ways we communicate beyond spoken language, right? A look, a touch, even a gesture can sometimes convey more than a whole paragraph.
You're absolutely right. And Dr. Larijani brings up the Sufi mystic, Shams Tabriz. He hardly ever spoke. He believed his unspoken words held more power, more depth. It really challenges us to think about the role of silence in our own communication and to be more sensitive to those unspoken messages.
And Saadi reminds us about that importance of being present. He takes something as ordinary as breathing and turns it into this profound lesson on gratitude. That line, every breath we take is life-sustaining, and when it goes forth, it gladdens the spirit. It's really stuck with me.
It's like an invitation, to be present in our bodies, to really feel those sensations of each inhale and exhale, to connect with that life force flowing through us. In a world that's constantly pulling us away from the present moment, Saadi's words are a gentle nudge to come back to our senses.
It's like he's saying, hey, wake up, pay attention to the miracle of being alive. It's happening right now, in this very breath.
It's easy to get caught up in our thoughts, our worries, and to forget about the simple act of breathing. Saadi's challenging us to slow down, notice those subtle nuances of each breath, and appreciate that gift of life it represents.
And it doesn't stop there. He goes on to point out the dual nature of blessings in each breath. Inhaling, we receive that life-giving air, and exhaling, we're releasing what's no longer needed.
And that's where it gets really interesting. Saadi's using this everyday experience of breathing to illustrate a deeper truth about life. It's a reminder that just like we need to take in what nourishes us, we also need to let go of what no longer serves us. Physically, mentally, emotionally, even spiritually.
It's like a metaphor for the cyclical nature of life, death, and rebirth, isn't it? We inhale, taking in new experiences, new knowledge, new relationships. Then we exhale, releasing what we've learned, letting go of what's not working anymore, making room for that new growth.
Beautifully said. It's a reminder that everything in life is always in flux, nothing stays the same. And embracing that impermanence, accepting the giving and receiving, the holding on and letting go, that's where you find true gratitude.
It makes you think about how much we resist that natural flow, clinging to the familiar, fearing change. Saadi's inviting us to surrender to that flow, to trust the wisdom of the universe, and to find gratitude in each step of that journey. But how do we actually put that into practice? How do we cultivate that sense of gratitude, especially when life throws us those curveballs? Yeah, it's not always easy, is it? Life can be tough.
It really can. But Dr. Dinani gives us a good starting point. He suggests focusing on those blessings we have, the big ones, the small ones, and actually expressing gratitude for them. Not just thinking it, but saying it out loud.
So instead of just thinking, oh, I'm grateful for this, actually telling someone.
Exactly. It could be something small, like thanking a friend for being there for you, or telling a family member how much you appreciate them, or even acknowledging a stranger's hard work. And get this, Dr. Dinani even suggests that even when you're not feeling particularly grateful, just the act of giving thanks can actually shift your perspective.
It's like fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
But with gratitude.
Think of it more like intentionally rewiring your brain, The more we practice gratitude, even when it feels a bit forced, the more natural it becomes.
So we're training ourselves to see the good even when things are tough. And Dr. Larijani adds this other layer. He says, recognizing our limitations is a sign of true intellect and humility.
Wow, that's deep.
It really is. It's about acknowledging that we're not the center of everything, that there's so much we don't know, so much we can't control.
It's like realizing we're just one tiny piece of a much larger puzzle. And that realization, it can be incredibly freeing. It helps us let go of that need to always be right, to have all the answers. It cultivates humility and opens us up to the mystery and wonder of life.
And that's where the real gratitude comes in, doesn't it? When we can appreciate the beauty and complexity of it all, even the parts that confuse us.
Absolutely. And that sense of wonder, that appreciation, it naturally leads to forgiveness.
Forgiveness. How does forgiveness connect to gratitude?
Dr. Larijani suggests that forgiveness is, essential to cultivating a grateful heart. See, when we're holding on to anger and resentment, it creates this blockage, this barrier to truly experiencing gratitude. But when we choose to forgive ourselves or others, we release that negativity and we open up space for healing and compassion.
It's like forgiveness clears the path for gratitude to flow.
Saadi himself understood this. He wrote so much about the power of forgiveness to transform us. He believed it was the key to true happiness and fulfillment. And it goes beyond just feeling good. It's about living in harmony with a deeper truth, a truth that recognizes our shared humanity, the interconnectedness of everything.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Saadi's wisdom, what's that one thing you hope our listeners take with them?
Just remember this. Cultivating gratitude is a choice, a practice, a journey. It's about noticing the good, expressing appreciation, acknowledging our limitations, and embracing forgiveness. And most importantly, remember that every breath you take, it's a gift. It's a chance to experience the beauty and wonder of life.
Beautifully said. I think Saadi would approve. And for me, it's that idea of language as a gift. Let's all try to use that gift with more awareness, with sincerity, and with deeper appreciation for his power to connect and inspire. Until next time, may your hearts be filled with gratitude and your words with kindness.